don't know if you do them.
Do what?
I said backflips. I don't know if you know how to do them. But, you know, choice is yours. No, I'm not going to ask because that's the first thing you learn in like hosting school. Never ask the age because, yeah, I don't want to get,
That's right, I'm over 25.
Well,
hi, everybody.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Y'all give it up one more time for Samantha. Come on. How was your trip?
Easy.
Easy?
Some turbulence, which is like not my favorite, but they do warn you. When they don't warn you, you're immediately assuming you're going to die. But if they warn you, you have a 50-50 shot. So I felt a little better.
And that's what you want in life, a 50-50 shot.
That's all I asked for.
So
that's all I asked for.
Let's get a fun photo with you. Look at this. Boom. I'm going to post those later, y'all. It'll be a good time. I will certainly do. Let's get started. Give us a little background on yourself. How did you get started in acting? How did it all begin for you? What was the spark that kind of drove you to it?
I had a somewhat unusual route. When I was 15, I started as a model in New York City, and I was good at commercials. So that was sort of my thing. I liked the moving camera. I liked the lack of being like constrained by still photos. And I really got tired of that sort of working for Macy's, like, it just wasn't for me. I did it for a long time because the pay is pretty good. But then I decided I wanted to, when I was in my early 20s, I was like, that's enough of that. And I moved to California where I could still model that's my day job, and then start to do more commercials and go to school at night. So that's what I did. And I just started loving the commercials so much, I did more and more of those, very luckily, and then a director saw one and gave me a movie. And because I had a movie and no agent to negotiate the deal, I got an agent. And then the movie fell apart, as independent movies often do. But then I had an agent, and so she started sending me out. And about 6 months later, I got my first job, which was Seinfeld, which I thought was a complete mistake. I'm like, they hired me by accident. They hired the wrong person. And every day I'd go to work, and every day I would drive home, and I was like, that was so fun. At least I got to do another day before I get fired. And I was terrible, you guys. I didn't know what I was doing. Like, I'd had a few acting lessons. I'd been on set doing commercials and stuff, but a sitcom is a whole other thing. It's like saying, well, I've been to the doctor, or I'm a nurse. Like, it's two very different things. But Jason Alexander and Jerry Seinfeld both were incredibly helpful. They're like, don't do that, do this. I'm like, okay. And I survived, and it ended up on air. From then on, I just started auditioning for other things. And I remember my first movie that I actually got to film was a little movie called The Truth About Juliet. And when I went into my audition, this was back in the days when you still had to print your headshot and staple your resume to the back and hand it to them.
Nice.
Like, and they look it over, which they never do anymore. They look it online, they're like, yeah. And then they just audition you on camera and send you on your way. But so I sat down and handed my pick and res to the director, and it literally had like 3 commercials that my biggest commercials where I had dialogue or I was talking, and Seinfeld. And he's like, it's the truth. He's like, nobody would make that up. And so that's how it started. And so I was the little girl who would get all the kids in the neighborhood and make them do a play in my backyard. And of course, I was always Cinderella, or whatever princess was in the story. And they were terrible. And half the kids wouldn't show up and would end up leaving halfway through, and I'd get very upset. And then I'd insist on doing a magic show at the end. Also terrible. But I never connected that I wanted to be an actor, ever, until I was in my 20s. So I was a slow realization. But that was my weird journey into this world.
Favorite magic trick? What was your showstopper?
Well, they were all terrible. And you have the little kids from the neighborhood sitting in the front going, I can see where you put that. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And it's like, boom, and it falls out the bottom of the paper towel or whatever I was doing. I mean, I didn't rehearse. I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought people were dumb and wouldn't see that I just slid the coin right through the hole I cut in the towel. So, I'm terrible. I love watching card tricks. I like watching them. I think they're fascinating. Even just the sleight of hand, like, is this your card? I'm like, how did you know? I'm so easily delighted by card tricks. I have never learned how to do any of them myself.
Well, hey, it's never too late. So
It might be.
never too late. Never too late. So I know a lot of fans in here are really clamoring to ask questions about Supernatural.
Sure.
Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I right? I'm right on that. So, Supernatural. Let's start on that. How did that come about? What's going on with that? How was that experience?
Well, so I got an audition from my agents for a pilot called Supernatural. And I opened it up and I was like, I die in the first 2 pages. I have 3 lines and then I catch on fire. I was like, whatever, I'll go. It's not going to exclude me from doing any other pilot, so I can continue to audition. And I went, and I remember being in that room and looking around and being like, I am so much younger than none of these. I'm never going to get this job. Because I just didn't look like a mom to me. Like a bunch of them were like the Desperate Housewives, kind of like they just seemed more like right for the part. And that's how actresses psych themselves out in the room. Look, she's perfect. I'm never gonna get this, because we're healthy. So I went into the room. This is one of my favorite audition stories of all time, by the way. So thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
It was a long, narrow room, like these 3 boxes. And the door was here, and it was a table, and it was David Nutter, the director. I think Eric Kripke was there, casting directors. And like I said, I had like 3 lines and then I catch on fire. So this was going to be an interesting thing to act out in a brightly lit room with people staring at you. Are you ready? You have any questions? I'm like, pretty self-explanatory. So I walk in and I'm like, okay, you got him, okay. And then I go, I see John downstairs by the TV. And I turn around and the room is not running upstairs. It's like I'm trying to, and I don't know what's wrong with me. There was a potted plant. I ran right into it.
Yeah, give it up.
That's what I did. I was like, And they were all kind of looking at me like, and David Nutter, the director, who's prolific, he's done like more than, I think, 25 pilots. He does a pilot every year, and something like 98% of them have gone to series, right? He's just sitting there with his hands on his chin, looking at me, and I'm like, they think I'm an idiot. And he just goes, and winks at me. And I was like, that's weird. So I went, I winked back. Apparently he's known, like when he likes something, he'll wink at you. He's like, that was good. I didn't know this. I thought he was like, it's okay. So I winked back and they hired me.
Nice. Yeah, give it up.
And then when we were shooting the pilot, I was sitting next to Eric Kripke in our little director's chairs by the monitors, looking at the house that's catching on fire. Because they didn't do all of that in order. And he was telling me, we were bonding over playing Halo. So I was a big video game person, kind of, back in the day. And he said, oh, you'll probably be back. I'm like, you know I die, right? You read the script? Right, you wrote the script. Do you remember the script? And he's like, dude, it's supernatural. We can do anything. And people say that, and I was like, yeah. And sure enough, like, come like September or something, they called me, like, you want to come back? I was like, no shit, really? And I caught on fire again. Seems to be a theme with Mary. Explosions, bleeding out, fire.
All the great things in life.
I love it. I have a poster of me on fire on my wall at home.
Do you really?
It's black and white, but I love it. I'm like, that is a very memorable job.
We need to get you a blacklight version of that.
A what?
A blacklight version of that poster. I bet
Ooh.
it would look very nice under the lights.
A fan gave it to me, and it's photoshopped and not just black and white. Like it's all like filtered, and it looks really. It almost like you have to kind of look at it to see what it is. It's really cool.
That's
So you
awesome.
can do some cool things with that photo.
Any other cool things fans have given you over the years?
Oh God, so many. Lots of little sweet trinkets and things, keychains and cards and beautiful little sentiments, little notes. I've gotten a lot of, I have a handmade doll that she makes little, sounds creepy, it's not creepy. It's not a voodoo doll or anything. But she has little braided hair and she's in her little hunter suit. I have a bunch of custom pops that people have sent me, like one's in a nightgown, one's with a machete, one's with a shotgun. They love when Mary first cut her hair and it was long on one side and short on the other. They love to artistically do that, like exaggerate that in art. I have a bunch of drawings, sketches. Somebody made me brass knuckles, the Nokia brass knuckles.
Brass knuckles?
Not out of brass, they're out of like resin.
Okay, all
But
right.
they're painted and carved. A lot of stuff.
Nice.
It's cool. I'm gonna have to have a little like area for displaying it all. Because right now it's like this is in a box, this is in my closet, this is on my desk, this is like it's kind of scattered around the house. I'm gonna have to.
The Winchester Mama
Yes.
display wall.
That's right.
I
That's
like
right.
that. I like that. All right, audience, y'all got some questions? I want to kick it to y'all. Let's get it going. Who really wants the first
This
question?
one shot her hand up
Which
like
one?
lightning in the. I don't have my glasses, but she's electric blue.
Electric Blue. Stand on up, Electric Blue. What's your name?
My name is Heaven.
Of course it is.
I really just wanted to know, what is your favorite moment with Jensen Ackles?
Son one.
There was a scene. There's many because I truly adore him. He laughs at me, but I'm like, I feel like you're actually my little brother. Like I've known you so long, but like maybe we were raised in different houses because I don't see you that much. We were shooting an episode in season 12 where they had just found out that Mary had been working with the British Men of Letters. And they were not so happy about that. And we were having a fight in the crow's nest at this table. I don't know if anyone remembers this episode. So Mary comes in with beer and burgers, and they're basically like, what are you doing? I'm like, well, I've been working with these guys, and they're like, GTFO. And it was tense. We're screaming at each other, like it's deep. It's like betrayal and family and out of proportion feelings for the situation, which happens with family and betrayal. And when you shoot a scene, so you shoot a wide version with 2 cameras, and then you come up closer, and then you do close up. So, and you have to relight for each thing, and even though there's 2 cameras, it takes a long time. And then you have to, they call turning around, and they switch everything to the other side. So we start filming either on me, and then have to move everything to film on them. And when it's them, they need even more, because they have to do all those things on each of them, right? Close-ups and whatnot. Took a long time. It took probably an hour and a half or 2 hours. Now, we're actors, and we know it's not real, but at the same time, you do, when there's a strong emotion in the scene that is uncomfortable, crying, anger, despair, any of these things, you can't just pop in and out of them very easily. I can't anyway, because you become ungrounded in what you're doing. And so you don't like pretend it's real, but you kind of live in it. So a lot of times if I have a scene where I'm crying, when the scene's over, I can't stop because my body doesn't know it's not real. My brain's going, get it together, and my body's like, what are we still crying now? And I'm like, no. They're like, are you sure? Like it can't stop. So we spent that whole 2 hours like, and I'm like, and where am I? And he's like, and then they say cut, and we'd be like, and we're like pacing. And Jared's at the desk like, and the camera guys are like, it was so tense. Finally, after all this, we finish. And they're like, moving on. And all three of us are like, and then Jensen comes over to me, he's like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm like, we just started like laughing and like so relieved because it was just so uncomfortable. And for the whole episode we had to live in that. I think the next episode too, because it was all about us just being like, because the characters are so alike, I think. But anyway, that was a really memorable moment to me that I'm not just the freak who lives there when I'm in a scene like that, like we all do. And I respect his work so much that to have him live in that same place was pretty validating. And also for to be able to know that people didn't really hate me. So that was a good one.
Good question. Thank you for that. Y'all give it up. No problem. Good job. I'm already here.
Okay.
We're gonna come with you next. Got it? All right. Say on up. What's your name?
My name's Charles.
Hi, Charles.
So, Jared and Jensen got to do the entire 15-year span. So, by the time that the series finished, they were ready to move on from their characters. So, for you, not getting to do the entire 15 years as Mary Winchester, is it harder, easier for you to say goodbye to that character?
That's an interesting question because while I was there for all 15 years, there were gaps, right? And for the first 7, it wasn't constant like it was at the end. And I actually had a hard time coming back to Mary because I didn't know who she was. We had never, for the first 7 years, she was like this idealized mom. She wasn't, I didn't know until they went back and used the younger Amy Gumanik Mary that she was a hunter and all that. So that didn't inform anything until much later for me. So when I first came back in season 12, I felt like I was chasing her. And every time I started to understand who she was and what she was going through, it would change again. And I felt that whole first half of that season being like, drinking from a fire hose. You know what I mean? Like, now what? Now we're going, what? Like, it just was a lot, but it tracked because she was doing the same thing. She didn't know who she was, where she was, all that. So, what I miss is that by the time I figured it out, it was over. And yet, I can only, in truth, look at it as a gift because I never expected to come back to life like that. My prediction had always been, I'll come back to life for the series finale. I always said, they're like, when are you gonna come back? I'm like, listen, they brought me back 7 times, very creatively. I'm a ghost, I'm a vision, I'm a hallucination, I'm a whatever, I'm an evil creature pretending to be Mary, like all these, I'm like, how many more ways can they, unless she's a robot now, like what way could they possibly do except in the series finale, I think, and they would never tell us, of course, they told us nothing, ever, told no one, nothing, ever. I said they're gonna bring me and John back to life in the final show. But because it's supernatural, the boy, we're not gonna be allowed to know who the boys are. That's gonna be some weird contingency that God or somebody puts on there like, because it had to be sad, right? So when they called me to come back to the show, I thought the series was over. I was like, I knew it, I'm coming back for the finale. And it was all very hush-hush, I wasn't allowed to talk about it. It was all very secret. And except about a month before I went up to shoot, I was at a barbecue at a producer's house for the show. And I said, Todd, so the show's ending, what are you gonna do now? He was a post-production supervising producer. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, is he stupid? Like, what do you mean, what do I mean? The show is ending. Did they not tell you? What are you gonna do next? And he's like, Sam, the show is not over. And you're coming back next season. And I said, why? Like, I didn't know. I was like, what do you, I'm like, how? What am I, you mean, I don't, and he's like, I made no sense. I was like, what happened? And he's like, no, we're not sure how yet. I don't know, I haven't heard. But no, you're gonna be on like the whole next season. I was like, okay. And sure enough, they called and the next conversation was, how much fight training have you had? And I was like, that's a big donut. I haven't had any except when I fought with my little sister when I was little. And so they sent me to a Krav Maga instructor, and then they sent me to a shooting range, and I was already very good at that. I'm actually a good shot, so that was fun. They didn't have to. I didn't know how to load or now I can take the gun apart and clean it and put it all back together. I knew none of that. I was like, these come apart? Like, and then I had boxing lessons, and if you watch the first season 12, my fighting is very bad, and you can't tell because they had an unbelievable stunt girl do everything for me. Like, you'll see me go like this, and that's the last thing you see. Oh, that's me. Everything else was Dana. She did, or Andrea was my first one. They did everything for me. Like, I'm like, I go to do this kick, and then it's like, oh, that's perfect. And I'm like, she did a great job. None of it, very little. So, but by the time we got to season 2, and then by season 3, a lot of it was me because somehow it occurred to me, I'm like, oh, maybe I should learn how to do these things. But I wasn't a kid, so the learning curve was slow. But I miss all of it. But I'm not the only one. They all miss it. From, Jared and Jensen on down. Everyone, we miss our friends, we miss our crew. I am constantly still in touch with all of the hair and makeup and the props people and some of the camera and the directors and the writers and certainly all the cast. In the same way you guys have all forged a family, and we have a family with you, we also have a family with each other, and not just the cast, but the whole 80% of the crew was the same from the season 1. So it was great, and it could have gone on forever, as far as we're concerned. But at a certain point, you're like, I'll get it. So it had to end, and I'm glad it ended strong. And that was something else we talked about. Let's not wait for it to be like, when are they gonna take this stupid show off the air? Like, let's finish strong.
Good question.
Thank you.
Very nice. Stand on up.
Okay.
How you doing? What's your name?
I'm Dave.
That's Damien.
Are you cosplaying today?
Yeah.
Who are you cosplaying?
Castiel.
Yeah, you are. Yeah. So, what's the question?
My question is, your character had kind of a big build-up throughout the entire series, and did you like the way they killed you off and the final death of you? Did you enjoy that, or did you think it should have happened a different way?
You mean the last time? Right. You have to be specific. Well, first of all, I didn't want to die at all. I remember I had taken my dog to the vet, and I got a phone call, and it was Robert Singer, the executive producer. And he's like, hey, Sam, it's me and Andrew Dabb here. And I was like, hey, oh no. He goes, yeah, we're talking about some upcoming stuff. I'm like, is it death? And they're like, yeah. Because the first season, I went up to Robert and I was like, listen, every week I get a script and expect to be killed. So if you're going to kill me, please so I don't have a heart attack? Because there have been actors on the show who are like, what? Like they had no idea it was coming. Like that's a big shock to have, to not know that your character's being written off a show violently. So they warned me, and I was devastated. So just because, again, I didn't want to leave. And I knew they had one more season. And I was like, well, the truth is Mary, for whatever reason, had lost the driving force of her character. So it was time for her to change or do something different. And her character served a purpose of a catalyst for Jack and the conflict with the boys leading into this last season. I'm choosing to believe that anyway. So how I died, I think it was okay. I was glad it wasn't shown on camera because, frankly, I don't think you can top the first time with the burning on the ceiling situation. And nobody wants to be exploded on camera. And I felt like if they were going to kill my character, they could not have done a more lovely homage to her in that next episode with all the flashback in black and white and the pyre and how like the photos everywhere and the funeral. Like they don't do that for a lot of characters. And I felt really honored by it. I felt bad for Alex. Alex Calvert, who played Jack, because the whole day he's like, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. Like, it's not your fault. I mean, you did kill me by accident. But I did mom you to death, so maybe it's a little my fault. You know, you keep poking at a Nephilim and something bad may happen. So no, it wasn't my favorite, but only because I didn't want to die at all. And as far as how they handled it, I thought it was really respectful of the character. Do you agree? You do?
Yeah.
Usually those questions are like, I hated it! And so I wasn't sure if you disagreed.
Nice, good question, thank you. Who we got next? I'll come right here. Your name?
Alex,
Hey Alex, question?
Different Alex.
Different Alex.
if you had the chance with the rest of the cast, would you come back for one happy ending instead of?
Oh, in a second. All of us would. In a second. When and where would be the response.
Sounds like you probably start a hashtag campaign if you're that going.
Yeah.
Just saying, you can make it happen.
Do-over.
Do over indeed.
Just kidding.
You got a question? Hi. I'm digging this Spider-Man. Yes, high five on that. That's fine. What's your name?
Bailey.
Bailey, hi.
Hi. My question is the episode that John got to come back with Jeffrey D. Morgan. How did you feel about that? Like, were you excited to get to work with him again, or?
So, I hadn't worked with Jeff since the pilot. I'd only seen him one time at one convention in England since the pilot. So, no, that's not true. I saw him we saw each other at a couple conventions like in Vegas and stuff. But I mean, in passing, right? But I adore him, always have. And pulling that episode together was tricky. There were some scheduling conflicts. We weren't sure it was going to work out. But then when it all came together, it was kind of surreal because all of us, and not just me, I know you're asking how I felt, but I can say all of us had this surreal feeling because the four of us had never been on set together. I'd be with them, with the boys. Jeff had been there with the boys a lot, and I'd worked with Jeff briefly in the pilot when the boys weren't there because our children were small. And yet, I mean, we talked about it a little, but I can say for myself for certain, it felt like we had been together every day for the last 13 years at that point. Like it was comfortable and easy, and a lot of that is because all three of them are such superlatively good actors. But there were scenes where we had emotion, and none of us, like I said before, none of us could stop crying. All of us, even Jensen, he's like, damn it, he's walking away, trying to stop crying. Because he'd look at me and he'd start crying, because I'm crying, he'd start crying, and Jeff's like, can you guys stop? And Jared's just like, and the only thing that stopped it, like from just falling off the cliff was the accident with the marble. Has anyone seen the accident with the marble? Raise your hand if you have not. Okay, so do you remember at the end of that episode when Sam has to crush that marble to send John back to the right timeline? So when you have props on set, some are real and some are meant to be destructible, right? So like sometimes you have a box that's supposed to melt and you have stable props that you keep using until the melting one and then you swap it out. Same things happen with things like marbles. And somebody had put the not crushable marble in the crushing scene. Or it just, I mean, it just got, or maybe he just hit it wrong, but I think it was the non-crushable marble. And so Jeff's standing here, I'm standing here, holding his hand. Jared's right there, about to smash the marble, and Jensen's right here. And we're like, and Jeff does his nods at Jared. Jared just goes, and hits that thing so hard, and it does not crush, and it shoots straight out, and hits Jeff right in the pants. He goes down. And he's still holding my hand, and I'm like, what are you doing? And then he's shaking. And these guys both go, and they start laughing and rolling around on the floor. And you can find the video, it's in the outtakes, and I'm just sitting there laughing because I don't know what's happening. And then someone goes, did that hit you? And I'm like, oh my God. And now we're all crying, but crying from laughing. My makeup artist was like, can you not? Mascara. That saved us because we were about to we're all like cry, like we're not rolling yet. We're like we just couldn't. It was ridiculous, and I don't know why. I don't know why the emotion was so big. I mean, the scene was big, but I think it was 15 years of this imaginary family in all of our heads, and we all have families of our own now. We're all married with children, and I think we could understand what, even at a greater level, what this would be like, and it was incredibly intense. One of my best work experiences in my life. She disagrees.
Is that what he sounded like when he got hit by the marble? That's painful.
He was not. He wasn't permanently injured. He was okay after a couple minutes, but it was funny.
I'm going to Hi, what's your name? Joseph. Where are you from? Portsmouth. Thanks for being here, man. What's your question?
So you brought up props. Was there any that you kind of sort of, this is mine now, and just left?
I accidentally took from the set? No, I ended up getting a couple like clothing items. I wish I'd taken the boots, Mary's boots. But I had my own motorcycle boots at the time. I was like, I don't need these. And now I'm like, these boots are 30 years old. I should have taken Mary's boots. There wasn't really, like the things I wanted would have been like her machete or her pistol, like she had a revolver. Not a revolver, a 9mm, and I'm like, they're not gonna let me have those. And you know, I have one of the flannels, like, but nothing, like the cool things were, they wouldn't give me one of the Impalas. And Mary never really had much of her own thing. You know, the boys had some of their own stuff, but Mary just kind of came in and floated amongst other people's lives when she came back. I guess I could have kept like the wedding ring or something, but I didn't. I just have a lot of the sort of memorabilia and other stuff. But I have my memories and I have lots of pictures. And I have the shows.
There you go.
What?
There you go.
Yeah.
Again, it's all recorded. It's fantastic. The machete would be cool though.
It was cool. And they all the weapons are real. just so you know, like the angel blades are really metal, the machetes are real, the knives are real, the guns are real. The guns are usually empty, and they show you that they're empty. Sometimes they have blanks in them, real bullet blanks. Never live ammunition, obviously. Like there was a scene where I was shooting at pumpkins, and I'd shoot and they had to charge to blow up the pumpkin. Like I'm not shooting bullets on the show. The machetes and knives, though, they dull the blade so that they won't hurt anyone. But on one of them, somehow my machete had like a little spot that was just a little sharp, and Jared cut the crap. He was just playing with it because he's always fiddling with stuff, right? And in between takes, he picked up my machete. He's like, ah. And we had to stop filming for like half an hour until they got the bleeding to stop. Like, don't touch my shit.
You're like, how many times have I told you, son? Don't touch. Another question? All right, stay on up. Very nice. What's your name? Pick up that. And where are you from? What's that? What's your question?
Out of all the cast members, who's the biggest prankster?
Misha, I think. I was by a large part separate from all of that. But I don't know if that's true. Jared is terrible. Jared likes to mess around too, so they're all awful.
That's the best answer. What's the next question? Where are we at? Right here, we'll go this gentleman in the back. Hi, what's your name?
I believe he was there when Rick Springfield was on the set. How funny is the work of that guy? 'Cause he's so funny as a musician and everything. He's just hilarious.
I met him in passing. I didn't really get to spend much time with him, but by all accounts, he was beloved on set and delightful and played the part with gusto and a sense of humor, and everyone just loved him. I thought he was great. I mean, as a Lucifer rock star, yeah, it was great. It was perfect. What a fun part. So many people got to play Lucifer and each a little differently. I thought that was really cool how they did that.
Did he bring his guitar and jam?
I don't believe so, but I can't swear to it.
You have a question? What's your name?
Is there anything you can tell us about the new show, The Winchesters?
Tell you about?
Anything you can tell us about the new show, The Winchesters?
I didn't even know about it until it got tweeted about. So I don't know if it's actually happening or not. I have no idea what they're going to tell because we know the story, but I'm presuming they have plans because, and I'd be curious to see what that is because the legacy of the Winchesters goes on, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I know I'm not on it.
If she was, she couldn't tell you just yet, probably. We don't know. And I said, if you were, you probably couldn't say anything yet either. So.
Oh, I think we would know if I were on it.
Right on. Who's next? Who we got? Hi. Another one over here. Let's see what's my name.
Okay, so I have one more question, and it's been killing me. Out of all of like the different cast members that you've worked with on Supernatural, who do you think like would be who would you consider like the stereotypical high school flick, I guess?
High school play?
Click.
The clique. The popular kids. Who's in the clique?
Oh, well, I don't think there is. I will tell you that we, the women of the show, have our own text thread.
Hello.
The boys on the show have their own text thread.
Watch out.
We have a text thread that's all of us. And just by seeing what's on that thread, I am so glad I'm not on the boys' text thread. But we are all, like, yes, there are varying levels of closeness. You know, certain people are much closer friends with each other than maybe someone else, but there's no exclusion. Everyone, and there are conflicts, and they're resolved, and people like a family. We're like a big group of cousins. And we all love each other. We have a happy birthday thread where we say happy birthday to each other. I don't know how many of you follow my socials, but if you do, you probably know that last summer around this time I was going through some intense surgeries for breast cancer treatment. And the day before, I had a series of 4 surgeries, and the day before I went in for my first one, Ruthie said, hello, might you be available to do a little phone chat? And I was like, yeah. She like set a day and time. She's like, Thursday at 11. I'm like, okay. I was like, is it gonna be like just you and me and like Michelle, or, because we have a couple other friends who are not cast, but who are still part of this crew. I was like, yeah, she was a couple of the girls, and you know, Rob wanted to be there, but he has something with his kids. I'm like, great. And I was like, they were gonna give me a little pep talk. Well, I get on, they finally let me in the room at like 10 after 11, and it's everyone. Every cast member wishing me luck, and they sent me flowers. I'm gonna cry again thinking about it. It was 2 pages of people on Zoom. And you know, Jensen was in his car and stopped and pulled over so we could do it. And Jared and Jen were in their living room, and you know, it was everyone, Kim and Brianna and the makeup artists and every Misha and Alex, every cast member. And that is who they are. They got 32 people, or whatever it was, to stop at 11 o'clock on a Thursday to be there for one of their own. And it may have just been a Zoom call, but it wasn't for me, just a Zoom call. It was the support of people I love and respect, who I didn't grow up with, and who don't owe me anything, you know, but they were there for me. And they've been there for me this entire time. I did a t-shirt campaign in support of breast cancer, and every single one of them stepped up and was like in support of it. And we raised a lot of money for research, and not even just for research, there's an organization in Chicago that it was supporting that gives screenings and treatment to women who can't afford it. And we supported a lot of women in that because of them. So, and all of you who donated to the campaign, so thank you. So that's who they are. So it's one big click.
Give it up for that. So we got time about one more question, and then we'll wrap it up. Hi, what's your name?
Amber. You talked a little bit about how in season 12, Mary went through a lot of confusion with the twists and turns that happened. And so I was just kind of curious how you found the inspiration, the depth of emotion that you displayed in coming back and realizing that you didn't get to see your sons grow up.
That was a tough one. And honestly, because I had been off the show for so long, like for 4 years without any appearance, right, or 5 years, I felt personally, Sam felt like a fish out of water. Not because anyone wasn't lovely and my character wasn't established or anything, but I was essentially a new character. And I allowed that insecurity and that confusion, because you can only think about how you would feel. Like, that's how I do my work. I try to imagine this circumstance and filter through how this character would feel. Starting with how I would feel, but then you start adding in all the pieces of how the character would feel. And lost was the main feeling. Despair and all that is part of it, but how could she connect to these 2 giant human beings as her infant sons that she left? So they're strangers. And technology and life, and her husband's gone, like everything was different. It was like being born in a new body. And I felt a little bit like that as the actress trying to play her. So I just let it rip. Like, I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I just kind of let that take over. And then the despair, it was more anger for me as the character, that I had missed so much that I could never get back. The frustration, Winchesters are kind of controlling. So, and that's what I mean. Like, so I worked through that at a little bit behind the pace of how Mary did. And so by middle of the season, there was something called the Raid, where she was on her own 2 feet, fighting vampires, had a plan, knew what she wanted. She was in charge, and I was like, there it is. We've come circle now, and she's back to who she was before she died. But it took half a season. And it was hard. Like, I struggled a lot personally because it was so close. You know. Thank you. Thank you.
Good last question, by the way. Thank you for that.
Last question.
I'll give it out.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for your time. And before we wrap up, anything coming up that you want to talk about or put out there, or we can find you online?
Tell you what, I have something coming up early in next year that I still haven't gotten permission to talk about.
Those NDAs.
But I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
I will show you.